This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Chapter 53, A Flow of the Spirit, and our symbol is the wolf. And as we were getting ready here, I was talking to Aradia in Discord, and she asked a great question. Why is this chapter called A Flow of the Spirit, as opposed to A Flow of Spirit? And I said, excellent question, Aradia. And then I said, maybe because it's supposed to have a double meaning, a flow of spirit and a flow of the spirit.
The way Perrin's spirit flows into Tel'aran'rhiod and flows into a wolf.
I was thinking more that this is like when it becomes clear that he's attached to Faile and really into her.
Totally.
The flow of the love spirit. Oh, that just sounds really lame. Kind of almost buy it. All right. Well, that works for me, Radio.
Sorry about this.
Yeah, well, that's the only reason I can think of.
This is the first time he transforms into the wolf. I kind of like that as the way his spirit's flowing in Tel'aran'rhiod.
See that? Perrin shrugged into his coat as he walked back toward the star, through the evening shadows. A good tiredness soaked through his arms and shoulders. Along with more common work, Master Ahala, or Ajala, I'm going to go with Ahala, had him make a large piece of ornamental work, all elaborate curves and scrolls, to go on some country lord's new gate. He had enjoyed making something so pretty. I thought his eyes would come out of his face, blacksmith, when he said he would not make that thing if it was for a high lord. He glanced sideways at Zareen, walking beside him, the shadows masking her face. Even for his eyes, the shadows were there, just fainter than they would have been for another's. They emphasized her high cheekbones, softened the strong curve of her nose. He just could not make up his mind about her. Even if Moiraine and Lan still insisted they stay close to the inn, he wished he could find something else to do besides watch him work. For some reason, he had found himself growing awkward.
Some reason.
Whenever he thought of her tilted eyes on him. More than once he had fumbled with his hammer, till Master Ahala frowned at him wonderingly. Girls had always been able to make him feel awkward, especially when they smiled at him. But Zareen did not have to smile, only look. He wondered again if she was the beautiful woman Min had warned him against. Better if she is the falcon. That thought surprised him so much that he stumbled. Again.
He likes to go on the hammer and think about things before he comes to a final decision. And I think what he's mulling over here is...
Go to work.
Yeah. He likes to just, put stuff together. Like, I remember there's one scene where he's working on the underside of the wagons when he's thinking. Yeah. He likes to think and work at the same time. And I think what he's doing here is working on the problem of Faile and his attractiveness for her. The fact that he's attracted to her. And
while she stares at the back of his head.
Totally. His shoulders. Let's be honest. Not the back of his head. His shoulders. If girls have large eyes, as a reference, I'm trying to think like... Guys have big shoulders as a reference? Could that be an analogy for something? Probably
I don't
not.
think so. I don't even 100% buy the big eyes thing.
That's fair. It could just be
it's funny, but...
Yeah, the big eyes are just a girl with big eyes. But Perrin's definitely hoping that Faile is the falcon and not the woman he needs to stay away from. Even though he
doesn't want to stay away from her?
Nope.
Yeah.
He starts to slip a little bit here, calls her Faile. Almost.
And then she says, "You will fall yet, farm boy. Have you ever thought of wearing a beard?" I just caught that, like on this read-through.
Really?
That she's the one that wants him to wear a beard.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't have the beard until he starts dating Faile.
I realize she likes it, but this is like probably the moment when he's like, maybe I should wear a beard.
And that's one of the dream prophecies when Egwene sees him in the dream with a beard. And she's like, why does Perrin have a beard? And it's like, because he's got Faile with him, and she likes him with a beard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. At one point, he's like, damn, beard itches. I'm going to shave it off. And Faile's like, that looks good. And he's like, I'm going to keep it.
This is a lot like real life.
It's amazing when someone who you're attracted to comments like, hey, I like that shirt. Or that's a good haircut. So
and like even if you hated that shirt before, then you like it.
It's your favorite shirt. You're like, yeah, I look good in this shirt. Perrin's like, I look good with this beard.
That has totally happened to me before.
So I look like crap when I'm not in a relationship. I have no idea. I just let it all go.
Oh, you just don't know.
I just don't know. This 6-month untrimmed beard looks attractive, right?
They head back to the inn and walk into Moiraine's room, or the dining room.
And she announces that Rand is here.
Moiraine announces Rand is here. Perrin seems skeptical. Lan says, haven't you heard all the rumors going around? But he's been working the entire time he's been in Tyr. I don't think he hasn't left like
the smithy
10-foot radius of the inn.
Well, they told him not to.
And he just goes next door and has all he wants to do.
I guess he could have sat in the common room and listened to the stories.
That's not really a Perrin move.
No. Tom would have been on it in about 10 minutes.
Yeah. Perrin says, I haven't heard of any weddings or wells drying up. And the warder says, there have been more weddings in the last 4 days than there haven't been in 6 months. And he goes on and on.
And many murders is in a whole year.
The first of Moiraine just decided that she's going to let the High Lords into her nation.
Which is the introduction of the Hawk there.
Something she would never do.
No, not normally. But Bran needs her in the stone.
Yes.
Because he needs her to run it. And so his Ta'veren nature has pulled her there. It's my assumption.
But Moiraine says, these things were not needed to tell me. Perrin, did you dream of Rand last night? Yes, he admitted. He was in the heart of the stone, holding that sword. He felt Zareen shift beside him because she had the same dream. And she says it in a moment. You see, Moiraine said, I have heard this dream spoken of 100 times today. Skipping a bit, people say he is the Dragon Reborn. They say he is coming. They whisper it fearfully in corners, but they say it.
She starts that out with a little bit of a laugh. I think that's because she's like, Bilal's doing my work for me. I want to spread the word of Rand as the Dragon Reborn. And he's out there just by not shielding his dreams, making everyone think this red-headed youth who looks just like Rand is the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah. And what of Bilal? Perrin asked. Moraine's ply was cold-drawn steel. I will deal with him tonight. There was no fear sent from her. We will deal with him tonight, Lan told her. Yes, my guide-in. We will deal with him.
Or Moiraine will just balefire him out of the back of the room.
I noticed when I got to the end of the chapter after this that everybody has a plan for Tyr, and none of them work out.
No,
nobody's plan.
No, nothing goes the way it's supposed to.
Not a single person, including the Dark. Everybody's plans go wrong.
I mean, if you want to talk about what I truly, truly love about the Wheel of Time, is everyone has their own perspective. Everyone has their own plan. And all those plans interact, and what happens is none of those plans. There's so many stories where you have one character who's manipulating everybody and plotting everything out, and it turns out they're the one who was controlling everything the whole time. They are the puppet master. If you look at Sanderson, Ruin was the puppet master the whole time.
Sure.
There is no puppet master in the Wheel of Time. Everyone makes their own plans. Those plans interact. Shit happens, and the outcome makes total sense, but not according to anyone's individual plan. So it's one of the things I think that truly makes The Wheel of Time brilliant is his first-person perspective storytelling. The fact that you are, I'm not sure if first-person is the right term, but the fact that you're in that person's head and you know what they know, unreliable narrator maybe, but what's happening in the background and what's happening outside of their notice. Things happen and the main character doesn't understand what's going on.
Yeah, being in the character's head is just like being in your own in the world. You don't have all the information. You don't know, and they're often wrong about things.
Right, yeah.
Just like the real world.
Just finished up the Alana Andrews writes a series, and the last book just came out, so I read that today. And she's right. The main character is always right. When she guesses, when she's I really enjoy the story, and it's really well done. But I sort of get tired. I really love the unpredictability of the Wheel of Time.
And narratives like that make for an unbelievable story.
Exactly.
And, frankly, not compelling.
Not always, no. Not from a plot perspective.
If the main character is always right, then, what is there to overcome? It's like a foregone conclusion. It is a foregone conclusion, rather.
Right. Well, you can be right about the fact that someone has a gun pointed at your head.
Well, yes, but,
That's, and still be powerless, and it can still be a challenge, and you can still have, problems to overcome. But
I'm assuming you mean, essential parts of the plot, not correct about what is literally in front of their face, but correct about
but, she's basically a detective, and whenever she investigates something, and she makes a guess about, this might be what's going on. That is what's going on. So they're looking for Ogier, Loial. And Lan doesn't call him by name, calls him the Ogier. And Perrin says, he might be upstairs because there's lights on in the windows up there.
Sure, they're looking for him because Moiraine is telling Perrin that what he can do while they're off killing Loial is leave and go to Tar Valon. You, Loial, Zareen, all leave and go to Tar Valon.
Mm-hmm. Get out of the city.
And so Perrin goes to find Loial.
But you know why the lights are on upstairs? It's not because Loial's up there.
Oh, yeah?
It's because the Forsaken were up there and left the hedgehog behind. I think that's why the lights were on up there.
Yeah? I mean, Loial's up there too, right?
I mean, yes, he is up there in his room because he comes down the hallway.
Oh.
But Perrin says there are lights on in the windows, plural. So it's not conclusive, definitely. It could just be Loial. But I was wondering if those lights were on because the Black Sisters were up there planting the hedgehog.
I just realized I keep saying that there's lights on. Perrin says there's lights in the windows because you don't turn lights on.
No, they don't have a light switch. I'm imagining they left a candle behind or something like that.
As they reached the top of the stairs, he heard another soft sound, a thump, as of something falling in the private dining room. He peered that way along the hall. Zareen? There was no answer. He felt the hair on the back of his neck shift, and patted that way. Zareen? He pushed the door open. Faile!
That's the first time he actually calls her Faile, verbally.
She was lying on the floor near the table. As he started to rush into the room, Moraine's commanding shout halted him. Stop, you fool! Stop for your life! She came along the hallway slowly, head turning as if she were listening for something, or searching for something. Lan followed with his hand on his sword, and a look in his eye as if he already knew steel would do no good. She came abreast of the door and stopped. Move back, Perrin. Faile's lying there on the ground.
And that entire room is filled with the trap, right? You don't have to touch the hedgehog. Because Perrin sticks his arm into the room, and his arm goes to sleep, basically.
Yeah, well, he goes to sleep.
Well, no, right here, when he's pushing open the door. Frowning, he worked his hand, the one he had used to push the door into the room, opening and closing his fingers. It tingled sharply, as if he had struck his elbow. Basically, it tingles like it went to sleep. You know, when like you sit on your hand and it starts tingling like that? So, like, right there, his hand entered the room, and the part of his hand that entered the room immediately fell asleep. And when he was able to pull it back out, it woke back up, and he was having that, like, tingling sensation that you get when you...
Moiraine is observing the scene. She sees the little hedgehog, knows that spirit was woven somehow as part of the trigger of the trap. A trap meant for me, she says. I would have been the first into that room if Zareen had not rushed ahead. Lan and I would surely have gone there to plan and wait for supper.
Now, it didn't trigger until she picked it up, but once it's been triggered, you don't have to touch it, I think is my assumption. Right? Because Zareen, it fell from her fingers after she didn't, like, enter the room and fall over at the threshold. She touched it. That triggered the spirit trap, and then it knocked her out. It's just inches from her hands.
Does anyone know? Do we see that later, exactly how the trap works?
I kind of made the assumption that the hedgehog was designed to help you fall asleep. And if you were channeling into it and then stopped channeling into it, you wouldn't be in Tel'aran'rhiod anymore.
I would extrapolate that this Ter'angreal must put you to sleep and bring you into Tel'aran'rhiod.
Right.
Because Faile can't do either of those things by herself.
Totally agree with that. But I wonder if it, like, has settings so you could, like, partially put yourself in Tel'aran'rhiod, and then just the way it was configured or the way the weaves were woven around it to set the trap caused 100% immersion.
We only see this now. We see a description of it earlier, and just that it was studied by Corianne and Nidial.
And one of the Tel'aran'rhiod stolen by the 13 Black Sisters from the White Tower.
Right. That's the only time we see it as a list, and then we see it now, and then
it gets broken. So there's no real other details on how exactly it works or what it was for. A lot of these Tel'aran'rhiod, you know, what they were used for is just pure speculation.
Yeah, and even the things that they are used for are not necessarily what they were made for.
Right. You know, they were saying this could be made for perhaps a medical coma, right? Just to hold somebody in stasis for a while. For example, if they got poisoned and you needed to slow down their metabolism or something like that, it could definitely be useful.
Oh, there was I think the description is, there's a short description from Corianon's journal, and it was, any woman who tried to channel through it went into a half-a-day peaceful, dreamless sleep.
And that's why there's got to be something with the way the weave was set around it to trigger it, that maybe the settings are different for Faile, because she's not the one channeling into it.
Right, they would have to be different, because she couldn't channel into it. That was my first question, was how the trap worked when I saw that scene, because I thought it needed spirit, but I suppose you could make just a trap with the power to channel spirit for you.
Exactly. And tie that off. And then what you have is, as soon as she picks up the hedgehog, it triggers the weaves. The weaves trigger the Tel'aran'rhiod.
That makes sense to me.
And with the weaves you use, you can maybe different spikes. I sort of think of it as like tweaking little knobs. You channel into different spikes on the hedgehog. You can change the radius, you can change the duration, you can change how strongly you go into Tel'aran'rhiod. Who knows? Maybe it's a really, really powerful Tel'aran'rhiod. Either way, yeah, Loial probably gave him some information on how to get it set up.
Yes, Consma. Someone definitely helped them, because I don't see how else they would have expected to trap Moiraine using the power. She would know.
No, and they weren't told to steal those Tel'aran'rhiod. They didn't, come up with the list of Tel'aran'rhiod to steal.
Right. Maybe that's what Lanfear was doing in the tower that one time, where we couldn't figure out what she was doing.
Telling Liandrin and that group? No, they were already gone.
Oh, they were already gone.
I think she was meeting with Masana.
Looking up the Tel'aran'rhiod they stole.
I definitely want to talk at some point about why Perrin has to rescue Faile multiple times, but that's the next chapter.
Yeah. I have a little part set aside to read here. Lan, bring me that innkeeper. The warder flowed down the stairs. Moiraine paced up and down in the hall, sometimes stopping to peer through the door from the depths of her hood. Perrin could see no sign that Zareen lived. Her breast did not stir. He tried listening for her heartbeat, but even for his ears it was impossible. When Lan returned, shoving a frightened Jura Harrod ahead of him by the scruff of his fat neck, the Aes Sedai rounded on the balding man. You promised to keep this room for me, Master Harrod. Her voice was hard, as precise as a skinning knife. To allow not even a serving woman to enter to clean unless I was present. Who did you let enter, Master Harrod? Tell me. Harrod shook like a bowl of pudding. Only to two ladies, mistress. They wish to leave a surprise for you. I swear, mistress. They showed it to me. A little hedgehog. They said you would be surprised. I was surprised, innkeeper, she said softly.
Not
Leave
all
me.
surprises are good.
And if you whisper a word of this, even in your sleep, I will pull this inn down and leave only a hole in the ground. Yes, mistress, he whispered. I swear it. I do swear. Go. The innkeeper fell to his knees in his haste to reach the stairs, and went scrambling down with thumps that suggested he fell more than once as he ran.
She doesn't want word getting back to Loial, even in dreams, that she survived this trap.
Yes. Because no word is word of success, right?
Right. No, this is the whole advantage that Moiraine has over Loial. This is why she's able to take him by surprise and balefire him. He thinks she's caught in a trap. He's dismissed her as a threat.
One of the only people the Dark knows is in the city, and one of the only people they think can do anything about what they're doing is Moiraine and Lan.
And they've been tracked. How do you think Loial knew they were at the inn?
Intrigue?
I mean, I think the inns are all being watched, right? Because Nynaeve and Elaine and Egwene escape notice because they're staying not in an inn. But the second Moiraine checks into an inn, they know exactly where she is and sets a trap for her. I mean, that's the whole point of having of those girls not staying in an inn, is they're like, we know all the inns. Yeah, they'll be waiting for us. And so they obviously were waiting for Moiraine as well, because they figured out where she was immediately.
He knows I am here, Moiraine told the warder, and he has found someone of the Black Aja to set his trap. Yet perhaps he thinks I am caught in it. It was a tiny flash of the power, but perhaps he is strong enough to have sensed it. Then he will not suspect we are coming, Lan said quietly. He almost smiled.
Almost. That might as well have been like Lan throwing his head back and laughing with delight. Like, we're coming for you, Bilal. I mean, he almost smiled.
Perrin just stares at them. What about her? He demanded. What was done to her, Moiraine? Is she alive? I cannot see her breathe. She is alive, Moiraine said slowly. I cannot, dare not, go close enough to tell much beyond that, but she is alive. She sleeps, in a way, as a bear sleeps in the winter.
Hibernation.
And she goes on to describe hibernation. And she also says, I fear she is not there, Perrin, not in her body any longer. What do you mean she is not in her body? Light. You don't mean they took her soul, like the Grey Men? Moiraine shook her head, and he drew a relieved breath. His chest hurt, as if he had not breathed since she last spoke. Then where is she, Moiraine? I do not know, she said. I have a suspicion, but I do not know.
And we talked about the mind, body, soul. I would say this is a mind trap rather than a soul trap. They haven't separated her soul from her body. That's still there.
And she is in Tel'aran'rhiod when he goes there. So that makes me suspect that, like when Egwene goes to sleep and goes into the world of dreams, perhaps someone trained in the power might be able to look at her and say, she's not here. You know what I mean? Like, she's not there. Her body's here, but her mind's somewhere else.
Well, and Moiraine says that the Dreamwalkers don't go 100% in.
And so perhaps Faile is.
And Faile is 100% in. And that's a big difference. That's why her body is basically in a hibernation state versus just a sleeping state.
That makes sense.
And so a dreamer is able to maintain enough of themselves outside of the dream. It's sort of in the way that, like, when Perrin's there too strongly, he's 90% in the dream and 10% in his body, and that could cause problems eventually.
Yeah.
And here, Faile's in the dream way, way, way too strongly. She's 100% in.
Moiraine says in a moment, I believe that Zareen has been trapped inside of a dream. Dream, Zareen, dream. When Perrin asks her why she doesn't do something, Moiraine says, the trap has been sprung, Perrin, but it is a trap that will still catch anyone who steps into that room. I would not reach her side before it took me, and I have work I must do tonight. Burn you, Aes Sedai, and burn your work. And this is when Perrin realizes that the wolf dream is the dream. It's the same place.
Is the world of dreams,
yeah.
And also that he'd let the world burn for Faile.
Yeah. I have told you what I can, she said sharply. It is time for you to go. Lan and I must be on our way to the stone. There can be no waiting, now. No. He said it quietly. But when Moiraine opened her mouth, he raised his voice. No.
She's just like, yeah, go head north to Tarvalon. Like, just leave her on the ground, like, unconscious and dying. No.
Yeah, I don't.
That's not.
I know these people grew up in a different place in a different time, but, geez, even if someone could channel, I would still be.
Do you think she's pushing Perrin to jump into Tel'aran'rhiod and rescue Faile? Because she definitely has an inclination that the wolf dream is the world of dreams.
It's hard to know what Moiraine knows exactly or understands, and how much of what she does is pre-planned. I would think she knows and understands a lot and plans a lot. Of course, everything doesn't always go her way. I think that Moiraine knows what she's doing, at least to some degree. Maybe she doesn't think Perrin can save Faile, but I think she pushes the boys and, like, everyone around her to do what she thinks they should. But at this phase, sometimes when they push back, she just lets them do what they want, especially with the Ta'veren and things related to Min's viewings. For instance, when she, like, gives Faile all this shit, like, to try to get her to leave, and she's just like, no, I think I'll just follow you anyway. And Moraine's finally like, all right.
That's your falcon. Yep.
It's on you then.
I also think she's laser focused on Rand right now.
Yeah.
That, as much as she's beginning to understand that the other two Ta'veren matter, her life's work has always been the Dragon Reborn.
Sure.
Always. And that's really, she's willing to let just about anything else burn in order to help him.
Literally.
And Faile is just a blip on, or let's say just a bump on the road to saving Rand, and she'll ride right over her without a second thought.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to get at. Like, I think these things are on her periphery, and I think she has a good understanding of what's happening around her, even in this scene with Perrin. But I think you're probably right. She's doesn't care to make them bend, always. It's not worth her time. She has other things to do, you know? But in this, I would like to think that she tells Perrin to leave. He says no twice. And then she says, "Remain if you wish. Perhaps you will survive this night." And then she calls land and they walk away. That's it.
I think part of that is the Forsaken knows that they're in the inn.
Like, we gotta get fucking moving. We can't stand here and talk about this shit.
If I'm going to take him by surprise and use the only advantage I may have against a Forsaken, I need to go now.
Yeah. Like, what happens after the trap gets set? Because I doubt they just meant to put me to sleep, for a little while. Does a comet drop now? Like, what happens next? Let's not stand around and find out.
Totally. I notice in here, in that paragraph, Perrin also says, "I will always call you Faile. I will from now on."
Aww.
It's just one of those, like... he admits to himself there that he loves her, is my sort of how I think of it. Is like, I don't want to lose this woman.
Yeah.
He's been mulling it over, thinking about it, and here, in a moment of crisis, he's willing to say, "You are my falcon, and I don't want to lose you." Yeah.
Loial shows up, doesn't know what's going on.
Loial being an implacable enemy and swearing to not let anyone pass, not a Myrddraal or the Dark One himself. And he would hold to that.
Sure. Perrin explains, sort of, and says, "Loial, I'm going to try to help Faile, but I will be helpless myself while I do. Will you guard my back?" Loial raised those huge hands that held books so carefully, and his thick fingers curled as if to crush stone. "None will pass me while I live, Perrin. Not Myrddraal or the Dark One himself." He said it like a simple statement of fact. Perrin nodded and looked through the door again. "It has to work. I don't care if Min warned me against her or not." With a snarl, he leapt forward, toward Faile, stretching out his hand. He thought he touched her ankle before he was gone. Whether this dream of the trap was Tel'aran'rhiod or not, Perrin did not know, but he knew it for the wolf dream. Rolling grassy hills surrounded him, and scattered thickets. He saw deer browsing at the edges of the trees, and a herd of some sort of running animal bounding across the grass, like brown-striped deer, but with long, straight horns. The smells on the wind told him they were good to eat, and other scents spoke of more good hunting all around him. This was the wolf dream. He was wearing the blacksmith's long leather vest, he realized, with his arms bare. There was a weight at its side. He touched the axe belt, but it was not the axe hanging from its loop. He ran his fingers over the head of the heavy smith's hammer. It felt right.
This is the first time he really has the hammer and uses it as a weapon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hopper alighted in front of him. "Again you come, like a fool." The sending was of a cub sticking its nose into a hollow tree trunk, to lap honey, despite the bees stinging its muzzle and eyes. "The danger is greater than ever, young bull. Evil things walk the dream. These brothers and sisters avoid the mountains of stone the two legs pile up, and almost fear to dream to one another. You must go." "No," Perrin said. "Faile is here, somewhere, trapped. I have to find her, Hopper. I have to." He felt a shifting inside him, something changing. He looked down at his curly-haired legs, his wide paws. He was an even larger wolf than Hopper. "You are here too strongly." Every sending carried shock. "You will die, young bull. If I do not free the falcon, I do not care, brother. Then we hunt, brother." Noses to the wind, the two wolves ran across the plain, seeking the falcon.
The first time he truly becomes young bull. It's a lot of firsts for Perrin in this chapter. First time having the hammer as a weapon. First time calling Faile. First time becoming fully young bull.
And standing up to Hopper. Standing up to your teacher seems like a theme that Robert Jordan likes to use. There's a few different scenes where there's important, specifically Avienda, but Perrin stands up to Hopper, Rand stands up to Moiraine. I guess that doesn't really count.
I think it definitely does. I feel like there's a real theme of, as you come into your own and make your own decisions, you're eventually going to disagree with your teacher. And you have to be confident enough to say, "I'm right."
Yeah.
You've taught me enough to know. I mean, I think Egwene and Suan is a huge one there
Egwene
as well.
And Swan, yeah. That's a good one.
Or Egwene and Nynaeve.
Or the Tower.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. I mean, yeah. Egwene stands up to all the teachers.
So there's just this coming of age for all of our characters who were country bumpkins when we met them 3 books ago. And now they're coming into their own as powerful heroes. You know, I really do think that this book completes the hero's journey for a lot of our characters.
Now that I think about it, this is kind of meta, sorry, but does Egwene not defy anyone? Does she? I think she defies pretty much every person, every important person. She
Eventually.
defies the Tower. She defies the Wise Ones, the Shan-Chan.
The Wise Ones, I mean,
she constantly does what they tell her not to do.
Yes.
Is what I mean. She never really... There's not like the same teacher scene because Egwene has to go home and save the world.
Totally.
Yeah.
I also really love the way the battle in this book parallels the final battle. Perrin's in the world of dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Matt's fighting crazily and leading a bunch of people in the stone. And Rand is fighting the Dark One, basically. The in this case, it's the Forsaken, but it's like the lesser Dark One.
Good point.
It's like this is sort of a very much a smaller, lesser version of the final battle. You know, the girls are fighting the Black Ajah. You've got Loial representing the Ogier. You know, I've talked about the circles inside the book, and I really do think that the first 3 books, the first trilogy, acts as a framework that reflects the whole series.
Yeah, definitely.
And we get to see Ishmael's final form in this.
Final form?
Yeah. It's always the third one, right? When you're fighting a boss in a video game?
Yeah.
It's always the third form where you actually get to kill them, and this is Ishmael's final form.
His power level's over 9,000. Most people are like as or less smart than me and most of the people I know. They're not like, so people in power, politicians, everybody pretty much. It's just me with a different experiences.
Possibly advisors. Like, I feel like at least good politicians should have people around them that provide information faster than Google, probably.
Maybe.
Like, that's what you want experts, right? Like,
sure. But they're still just people.
Sure.
That's the real problem.
But, like, you're an expert on Civ 5.
No. Hardly.
More than I am.
I'll stop playing it when I beat it at the highest difficulty. Until then.
Yeah, we're definitely Wheel of Time experts. Just because it's what we've spent time doing and talking about, you know?
Yeah.
So if you were, say, producing a TV show, you definitely want to turn to us to learn about the characters and help with any details you might have. As a matter of fact, I'd say you should probably have us on staff.
Are you looking for people who just talk about the Wheel of Time all the time? Constantly read the books?
And if you need a consultant on, say a TV show.
Sup, Rafe? See you on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, we've got that list of questions that we're putting together.
I saw that happening.
They're all very serious. I was thinking we should find some, like, silly questions to include in there. I was thinking like a marry, fuck, kill, Rand, Perrin, Matt.
Kill Rand.
Marry, Perrin, fuck, Matt? I don't know.
This is a personal decision. I can't help you.
But yeah, we should get silly with some of those questions. See, because like there's definitely a lot of like, okay, what are you going to do in the show? Like, how are you going to represent magic? How are you going to cast people? You know, like, how are you going to make the TV show? And that's a lot of that's going to be watch and find out. I want to get to the fandom of Rafe. I want to get to his, like, you know, we know he understands watch and find out. He used that. We know he's like loves Bella because he mentioned her as a major character. Like, there's little things like that, hints he's been dropping that clearly he understands the fan base. And so I was hoping to like go down that path in terms of like having fun, interesting questions for him to answer that he could like dig into as a fan rather than as a TV producer.
Yeah.
Because I think you're more likely to get like an interesting answer out of them if you're going to be like, hey, nerd out with me about the books, rather than as a TV producer, how are you going to do your job?
Actual Watt related questions.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. In the same way that like your coin question to Brandon Sanderson about what happens to the economy got a much more, I think, interesting answer than some of the like esoteric magic interaction answers.
Yeah, I feel like that changed the mood in the room because nobody was expecting it.
Yeah, totally. And it got him giggling and laughing. And yeah, I wouldn't mind if someone asked him when he was going to come on the podcast. That would be fine. Can you imagine interviewing him?
Tell him he's not really legit until he comes and talks to us.
We've had some decent names.
Yeah, if Rafe came on the show, I would probably mostly avoid asking him lots of questions about the TV show and just try to talk to him as a fan because, like you said, that's sort of boring.
Exactly.
And, like, people are yelling questions at him all day, every day on Twitter, and he's probably either answered whatever questions we can come up with about the TV show or has strategically not answered, you know? So ask him things that he can answer. I
take my inspiration from a guy named John Gruber who does Daring Fireball, which is a Mac fan site. He's like, and he's had a chance. He's gotten in with the higher ups, and he's interviewed some of the like executives at Apple. And that his philosophy has always been like, listen, I could get up there and ask about the next iPhone, and they wouldn't answer the question.
Right.
So I get up there and I talk to them about technology and programming and all the stuff that they're nerds about. That's not necessarily the future of the company, which I know they can't answer.
Right.
And so I sort of want to take that philosophy with Raph as well and say, hey, I know you're not going to answer like these questions about the future of the TV show because A, you haven't done it yet. And B, so you may not know. And
right,
B, like
know a lot of the answers.
Right. The like, things about casting, it's like he hasn't done anything on casting yet.
No, you need a script first.
Right.
And then the script has to be approved and then funded. And then you can start talking about actors.
Right.
Once you have a budget.
What are all the ways you... That's a
question.
Really good question, Jesus. What are all the ways you can pronounce Rafe, Raffe?
Raffi.
Oh, the Bella casting question is definitely like, that's sort of like being a fan. And he'll be like, oh, like it's a horse. Like I'm not going to...
Have you put any serious thought into...
casting the most important character?
If you're going to cast as Bella?
Yeah, if you could balefire one character, who would it be? Stuff like that that's much more like...
If you could balefire one Twitter user, who would it be? Follow up.
Oh. I mean, I really hope the nods to Bella are subtle, but they're there. And I don't know how he would do that because I don't make TV shows, but I hope he does it well because I think that would be really like fun to see I don't even know, just like Bella stomping down a Trolloc in the background, like an Easter egg type thing where if you're not watching the background, you won't see it.
Yeah. The beginning of the first book, 6 people leave the 2 rivers. One of them's Bella. Lil Pump. Lil Pump is a rapper, I guess correctly. And holy shit, I'm much older than either of them.
I got news for you, Patrick. We're starting to get older than the vast majority of the world's population. Because the world population definitely skews young. Does anyone know what the median age of the world population is? I feel like it's in either low 20s or teens.
I'm sure that's Googleable.
Absolutely.
26.4.
So yeah, we are above that. Population growth does weird things to statistics.
Nah, I figured it was in the 20s because there has to be like more 0 to 10-year-olds than say 50 to 60-year-olds, just by like lots of children die, then they do really dumb shit when they're teenagers, and so there just has to be way less. Like, pretty much no matter what.
We're having more kids all the time, so as population grows, even if everyone lived to be exactly 80, there'd still be more young kids. You know, the average population the median population would still be below 40, even if everybody lived a full 80 years. And yes, there are definitely massive variations. That is not true in the U.S. Whereas in India, I believe the median age is much lower. In like the U.S. and Japan, the median age actually goes up quite a bit.
Yeah,
as population growth slows and average
people
lifespan
have
increases.
Money to buy birth control and know how to do it.
Knowing how to do it is not usually people's problem. We usually figure out how to do it.
Yeah, if you live in a place where you can figure out how to do it. Oh, God.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?